Hello everybody, MegaZardex here, back at it again to give y'all another very exciting video. And for today, I just want to go through and talk about Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, because the game has been out for almost a little bit more than a month, and I figure for a lot of people out there, especially for the day one buyers, they managed to go through this game. It's not necessarily a really long game. I think roughly takes on average about 20 hours, give or take. For someone to go through and beat it though. And I was going through the game, and as of the point of this recording, I'm very close to the end of the game. Like, I think I only have like one or two more dungeons though. So I thought I might as well go ahead and give my little reviews, impressions. I guess it's more so closer to review than versus like an impression, because I got, extremely far up in the game. But by the time this video comes out, I probably will have beaten this game though. So I figured I might as well go ahead and take the time out just to give my overall thoughts and my takes on The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, and let you know exactly what I think of this game thus far. So if you hadn't already done so, make sure to go and hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight up into this video. Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Now, this is obviously a game that's very much inspired by the Legend of Zelda Awakening remake that we happen to get released by Nintendo in 2019. It has a very similar art style. I feel like the art style is a little bit more fleshed out, a little bit more so. Like, it doesn't quite look as much as like that toy aesthetic that the Link's Awakening vibe was kind of giving up in there though. But I mean, I think for all sakes and purposes, I think the style is still pretty good. I got used to it pretty fast thanks to, me going through and playing through Link's Awakening though. Now, the first thing I want to go through and talk about, let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room, the performance of the game. Because I know for a lot of people, this is not ideally the best that Nintendo could have put out. Obviously, Grezzo are the developers behind making this game, the same people that made the Ocarina of Time 3D game, as well as the Link's Awakening remake and such, and then even A Link Between Worlds on the 3DS. So, they've been handling, 2D Zelda quite some time. I still think that they're definitely the studio behind it though. But I think the some things that some people don't necessarily like, it's like a little bit of blurriness that you have towards like the outer edges of the screen. I felt like it worked a little bit better for Link's Awakening because it technically was all taking place in a dream, versus within this game where it's all happening in real time. It's not like necessarily a dream, or at least I hope not. And for the most part, kind of seems a little bit distracting, but I think the longer I was going through and playing through this game, the more so I didn't really notice it too much, unless I'm just trying to look at something like really far off in the distance, because it's like, you can move that right stick around to kind of, shift the camera a little bit left or right, where it's like, where something might have been barely out of your focus, and then you can kind of see exactly where you want to head to. I do like that little bit of a feature to have up in the game though. But overall, it's a little bit distracting, but it isn't necessarily too bad. Now, on the other side of the things is the frame rate, which the frame rate, okay, at least for me, while I was going through and playing this game, I noticed the frame rate fluctuating a little bit back and forth. Sometimes it'll be 30, sometimes it'll be 60. And I feel like the worst spot in the game is like right around where the castle is, where Zelda resides and her father and everybody else around Castletown. Like, that's where I noticed the frame rate kind of fluctuating off quite a bit. Now, as you're going through and playing through this game, you're trying to heal these areas that are known as rifts, which are kind of like dark voids and stuff, that are popping up all across the land of Hyrule. And I noticed whenever I cleared the rift that was around Castletown, the frame rate wasn't nearly as bad as what I noticed before. And I don't know if that's just a me thing or what, but it was a little bit odd though. But I noticed most of my issues is kind of around that area. And I don't know if it's just me going through and playing through the game a lot longer and getting used to it though, but I noticed the most issues I have with frame rate is kind of closer towards the beginning of the game, and the further out you explore in the in the land of Hyrule, I didn't have those issues nearly as much. So I think those are my two main nitpicks in terms of performance, but everything else I would say is pretty solid. Now let's go ahead and talk about the gameplay, because obviously the main drawing point for Echoes of Wisdom is these echoes that Zelda's able to capture, whether they be inanimate objects such as like rocks or trees and such, or some of the enemies that you happen to manage to, defeat. And I love the echoes idea so much. However, the execution could have been handled a little bit better. Like, I like the fact how you can literally summon different things to be able to spawn and put, for you to get around certain obstacles. Like, for example, if you have like a little bit of a wind gust blowing at you directly, hey, you can manage to, put a tree down, to walk past it. You can put down a little crate, jump across it. You can put down a trampoline and jump over it. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can handle approaching different scenarios given what you have in your resource belt, which is something that was kind of inspired heavily upon from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Something that I like to dub as like the new age Zelda factor. I might have to make a whole nother video for this in general though, because like there's old age Zelda where you had the classic puzzles and there's like only like a set amount of ways you can actually solve those, which Nintendo probably accounted for all of that. And then you have this new age Zelda where it's like, now you can handle these problem solving with whatever you have with your tool belt. And it might have been something that Nintendo might not have even thought about in terms of solving a puzzle though. So I do like that regard of what they were able to keep from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but being able to apply it within a 2D Zelda. Now, the unfortunate thing is, while you're going through and playing this game, you're gonna encounter a whole bunch of echoes, a lot more than what you thought you might have had originally, from all the inanimate objects and all the monsters that Zelda happens to defeat across the way. And the item management is such a debacle to kind of go through and toggle through all that stuff. Like, yes, you're supposed to hold the right arrow on the D-pad and then scroll with the right stick on all of them though. And I know they categorize it as like last use, last earn, most commonly used, etc., like with the inanimate objects, and then ones that are just scaled based on enemies and such. And you start getting so many that this becomes a task to go through and scroll through and find that one thing. Like maybe you need to set something on fire, so you're trying to find a few different enemies that can actually cause a fire to like burn up the grass, or maybe you need something like an echo that can actually fight in water, like a shark or something like that. So you're just trying to scroll through there and try to find it. That might have been the biggest thing that kind of pulls you out of the experience. It usually takes about anywhere from like 10 to sometimes 15 seconds at most to find something super specific. And it really bothers me the most when you're trying to go through and solve puzzles though. But outside of that, I think the echoes themselves are a joy to have. It's just the execution. I don't know if you can find a way to manage to do like a hotkey with like ZL plus one of the face buttons to execute that a little bit better for like some of your most commonly used ones. Because, some echoes are stronger and have a little bit more use than other things. Like once you get that water tile block, it's over. It's a wrap. Man, you're going to be using that so much in the game. I can't say and stress how much I love that one echo in particular, though. It's always at the very front. But, outside of that, echoes, I love them. I just wish they were executed a little bit better. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the story. And I'm not going to go super deep up into the story because, for the most part, people might still be going through and playing this game. They might be trying to pick it up around the holiday season though. So I'm just going to keep things on a very bare minimum surface level though. Because obviously we know in this game, there's a whole bunch of rifts and stuff. There's some kind of creature creating them. We're given the illusion that it could possibly be Ganon. That might be the one behind it. He's literally the first boss that you play in the game in that encounter while you're going through and playing as Link before you actually transition over into Zelda though. Link got absorbed into the rift and it's up to Zelda to save everybody else from Hyrule from all of these expanding rifts that are spanning across the whole entire land. Now, this is great because this is the first time we managed to have Zelda as the main playable character for the first time in the Zelda game, or at least in the mainline one, should I say. Not like, Hyrule Warriors, I ain't talking about none of those games though. But I love the way how she doesn't necessarily play as Link. There's some things that, yes, you can do with Link, like, for example, Link sword fighter form where you're actually able to like transform into like a version of Link where you're actually able to swipe around, use a sword, arrows, bombs, all the stuff he normally would do. But they obviously give you a little bit of a limit cap because you got this little energy bar and you can go through there and upgrade that bar as well as how strong the sword, the bows, the bombs, whenever you do manage to go through and collect all those different things though. So I do like how that's an option, but they do limit it. So that way it's encouraging you to still play as the bread and butter for Zelda, that being her echoes usage and stuff. And that's what you're mainly going to be using for most of the game. And then obviously you also have the automatons and stuff, which go on a little bit of a side tangent though. Those automatons, I was like, man, oh man, I don't know why in the world they introduced those things so late up in the game. Like you're already past like I think around 3 dungeons or so before you might actually manage to encounter that dude, unless you make a beeline for wherever he's at though. But I mean, like, it felt like they introduced that mess so late in the game. I don't feel like I'm super encouraged to use them, even though if you bring them the right stuff to create those automatons, they can be really useful in a lot of different given scenarios though. But oh man, I wish that was just showcased off at least a little bit earlier in the game, so that way you can use them a whole lot more though. But outside of that, the rest of the story, it's a pretty simple story. I like the little bit of lore drops they give up in the game. I won't, expose those for y'all out there though. But if you know, you know, and I like how they incorporate some of the things in the timeline, even going back to like some of the stuff we learned within, Ocarina of Time. So I do love that regard though. But obviously there's not like full voice acting like you had in like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom during certain cutscenes. They're just, different chibi characters and stuff making the grunts or the sound effects and stuff like that though. But these different story interactions you have with the different NPCs that you come across the land of Hyrule, it seems like they're always telling a little bit of a story for each major dungeon that you're going through and solving, as well as a lot of different side quests, which the side quests are actually, plentiful and also very enjoying and sometimes pretty satisfying in terms of what they actually give and offer and manage to give you though. So I really do love all of that. You also have like different things like, the Deku scrubs coming back up in here. I love how they incorporate that along with the Riverside Zora. It's been a while since we've seen them and such. And one of the new mechanics they have up in the game is these smoothies, which you're able to craft, different things, which, you're used to crafting things in Breath of the Wild along with Tears of the Kingdom though. But being able to put different, fruits together like an apple or even like rock salt or something like that, which allows you to create things where it's able to give you more hearts or even more of that energy meter that's pretty limited for the Link Sword Fighter mode, because you have the land of Hyrule and then you also have the Steel World, which I love the Steel World, and that's where all the classic, dungeons and stuff come into play though, because one thing I think a lot of Zelda fans have been clamoring on long and hard enough after playing through Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they want more classic Zelda. And at least for me personally, I do kind of miss that. I felt like the last game I played that had classic Zelda in it was obviously Skyward Sword, which was like one of the last few games we had, not including, 3D Zeldas technically, before having Breath of the Wild and by extension Tears of the Kingdom. And to that regard, I love the way how they bring that back. It kind of gives you those same vibes and stuff as you were going through and playing games such as Link's Awakening, where it's like, hey, you have to find the one key to get you to the boss room, and you're going through and exploring all these different rooms, fighting different enemies, solving different puzzles and stuff. I love that aspect. And when you incorporate the echoes and stuff, man, oh man, it feels so good and feels so satisfying whenever you solve certain puzzles that might get you to scratch your head at least for a little bit of time, or before having that epiphany moment, be like, aha, I finally figured this mess out though. I can't say how many times that has happened in this game though. And because of the echoes, you're able to approach all of these different scenarios in a way that makes sense to you as the player. And it might not be the way how Nintendo might envision it though, but as long as it makes sense for you and you're able to keep progressing, that's the most important thing at the end of the day. So I really do love the fact how they managed to bring back these dungeons and such along with the Steel World, because the Steel World gives me like Distortion World vibes from like Pokemon Platinum, like that game, man. So I always love going up in there and playing it, and the bosses are a little bit more challenging than I feel like in some other past 2D Zeldas, especially like in comparison to Link's Awakening though. So I do like the little bit of challenge up in that, and you can find them whatever way you want because of all the different echoes you have in your arsenal. But I feel like that's where I use the Link Sword Fighter mode the most in, because like, hey, I feel like it's geared towards that. Like some bosses, it's like it's geared to you using your swords or the bombs or maybe some of the arrows that the Link form happens to accumulate throughout your whole entire playthrough of the game. So overall, I really enjoy my experiences with Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I hadn't even touched on the fact of like, this is a Zelda game that has freaking music. We're not back in that Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom era where it's like you have some light piano music on the side though. No. You had some fully thought out and fleshed out music while you're playing this game from start to finish. Everything from the simple thing that you have around Castletown all the way over to where you're on that ranch where you get Zelda's horse at and stuff. Like, it's all there, and I can't say how much of a statement that is to say, because man, oh man, I miss solid Zelda music in a game like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Don't get me wrong, you have some great orchestrated music and some tracks and some given circumstances in those games. Obviously, some of the most iconic versions are just for trailers that don't even show up in that game, and they show up in games such as like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and stuff. So I can't say how much of a blessing it is to actually have legit music throughout this whole entire experience though. But overall, I love my time with Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. There's just only a couple flaws I have up in the game, and that's more so on the performance side at the start of the game. But once I got like greater than like 7-8 hours into the game, almost at the halfway point, I didn't notice any of them at all, or at least I got accustomed to. So maybe some point in the future, if Nintendo decides to go through and try to patch this game up just a little bit more, or if this game is playable via backwards compatible on the Nintendo Switch 2 or something like that in the distant future, then hey, hopefully maybe some of those things get ironed out or something like that though. But overall, if you're sleeping on this game, for as you know, with this being one of Zelda's very first games that she stars in as the main leading protagonist, hey, oh man, hey, you're sleeping on this game and you need to wake up, because the new creature that they introduced with that new bit of lore drop, I'm not gonna say it, but like, oh my goodness, man, I can't wait to fight that thing. Like, I need to. I just need to, though. But y'all gotta let me know down in the comment section down below, what all do you think about Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom? Are you having a blast going through, playing and accomplishing all these different side quests you have along the way? Do you like doing the main story? Do you love having actual music within a Zelda game, or anything else in between? Let me know down in the comments. But that's gonna basically do it in terms of today's video. So if you really like this video, make sure to go and hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. So remember, y'all, until whatever video I make next, see y'all.